we finished up last time talking about coherence on the heart. You remember when I showed you my heart and we showed it out of coherence? And then I showed you when I'm breathing correctly, how the heart gets into balance. Do you guys remember that? And we looked at, I mean, it's just crazy, right? If I change my breath, all of a sudden my heart reacts differently. And when it does, it goes into this state of balance. So for Trove right here, this is his breathing. Okay, see the orange line there. And then this is his heart. That's his heart, okay, going up and down. So if I was going to look at this and I was going to say, okay, let's look right here. This line right here is probably what his pulse is, around 70. So we all know what our heart rate is. But I'm not concerned about the heart rate, right? I'm concerned about the ups and downs. You remember when we looked at that? And we want the ups and downs to be very symmetrical, right? And so we're looking at that, and the orange is his breath. So what do you notice about his breath? It's kind of shallow at times, and then it's a little deeper, but it's inconsistent. So consequently, the heart is more inconsistent. And then these three variables are super important, okay? This is all about the heart. And you're going to see this for the 21 people we measured. We're going to look at the average of these three colors right here. The red picks up stress, okay? I want that to be less than 10. Less than 10. Right now it's at about 40%. So maybe you guys create a little stress for him. I don't know what that is, but we don't want that happening all the time. And there's a few guys here in the room that have been doing some training that they're like, man, I can make that a 5, right? Because they've learned how to do that. The green is the coherence, and that's when we get the balance. We almost got a little coherence here. Do you see where the breath went up and the heart tracked? So we want more and more green because that is what develops our resilience. You remember we want resilience, wider fulcrum so we can handle stress. Right? Remember that? So we want more green. We're getting a little bit more here. And then we want less blue. So let's try practicing a little bit, Trove. I want you to push your stomach out. We can all do this together. So we're going to go inhale and push it out. So bring in oxygen. Hold it. And then exhale. Pull it back in. Okay, so we're going to see how he changed that already. Okay. Now let's watch what happens to, keep doing that. See if anything happens to the green line if he does a few of those breaths. Okay, down, yeah, you're pulling it back in. Now we're going to push it back out again. Don't worry about that. Okay, keep going. Nice and relaxed. Okay, so we want to change this. We're going to go about another 30 seconds. We're kind of putting the pressure on him. I'm not expecting it to change a ton, okay? But if we can see how his breathing is already different, okay, that's good. Let's see if the green starts to change a little bit here. We'll go about another 15 seconds. Great job, buddy. Great work, okay? See how the heart's starting to line up with the breath? You guys notice that? We haven't got the full number here yet, but look how his heart's wanting to line up. That's really, really cool, okay? Nice work. Keep going. We'll go about another 20 seconds. Very good. So you remember when we first started and his heart was all over the place? The white line? Does everybody remember that? He's literally changing. Okay? Look how much is going on in the green. So what's happening to his fulcrum? He's getting more resilience. There could be chaos going around, but the heart, this was like 40% before on red. He's still in the same situation, but he's changing his oxygen. Let's watch another 15 seconds. Good job, buddy. So he's at 20. Ideally, I'd like him only at 10 of that red, and that would take some practice. But that's excellent. The blue's going away. The fulcrum's getting bigger. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop there. John, can you stop him for me? Fantastic. Good job, and end. Let's give him a round of applause, and John will help you get that stuff off, okay? Great, 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 great. And can you disconnect me from that? Yep, thanks. Okay, so here we are today. It's master class number 3. Is anybody learning anything? You guys learning some stuff? Okay, I hope so. I'm learning some things, okay? I'm learning a little bit about NASCAR every day. I'm trying to work on it. ChatGPT is helping me out, okay? And you guys have had some good weeks lately, which is great. Good work, everybody. But we want you to learn as much about the brain and body, upstream what's going on, so that we can improve downstream who we are as individuals and be as strong as possible under stress and optimize performance. So today, I'm talking about one of my favorite topics. Well, the brain's my favorite topic, as you know from the kind of intro video we sent out to you. But the number one thing I love talking about is sleep. Sleep. Isn't it amazing what we do? A third of our life we spend sleeping. It's crazy. A third of our life. If I live to be 90, I'm going to spend 30 years sleeping. So I hope I do it well. I want to make sure that I'm sleeping well. About 15 years ago, I told my wife, I said, I'm really going to commit to something. And she's like, he's going to do the dishes. He's going to, help out around the house, help with the 4 kids. I don't know. I said, I am going to become a great sleeper. She's like, wow, that helps me out a lot. And I said, yes, it will help you out a lot. But I really have been something, back when I was working the ICU at the Children's Hospital, I'd be up at 2, 3 in the morning doing consults and just pumping the caffeine just to run through the day at work. And I was just going full tilt, wide open all the time. And I realized that wasn't going to pay me dividends at the end. So I wanted to really work on sleep. And as I did, I studied it more and more, and I found out how important it is. So before we get into sleep, let's finish up from last time. So our attendance last time, we have the office. Is this through lecture 2, John? Yes. This is cumulative? Yes. Okay. Pit crews at 3%. Let's give them a courtesy clap. Courtesy. Little golf clap. Like this. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Shop coming in at 13%. Nice work, shop. Okay, come on. Let's give it up for them. Okay. And then leading the pack at 16%. The office. Go office. Good job. Give them a clap too. We can do that. Nice job, office. Okay. And remember, the winner by week 6, or by our 6th lecture, will get 2 free months of breathing training. 2 free months. That's pretty cool. You're going to have kiosks set up. You're going to be doing the same thing we do at the San Francisco 49ers, that we do at Adobe, that we do at different companies and places all over the country. And you're going to have that for 2 months right there in your space, which will be really cool. So make sure you attend. I did want to give you kind of a couple free things that you could think about for trying to work on your heart, because that was one of the things you said, well, what can I do? What can I do? I get that this coherence thing is important, but what are some things we can do? So there's a great app that you can get on your phone that's called Heart Coherence Plus. Heart Coherence Plus. And what it does is it uses the camera on your phone, and you put your finger over it. And when you put your finger over it, it reads that inner beat interval. I'm kind of cutting, well, am I okay? It reads the inner beat interval, and that gives us that signal that we can learn to, over time, improve our coherence. So that works. You're not getting much coaching with that, and you are using the finger, but that's a great app. There's another thing called Heart Math. Heart Math. They have a device called Inner Balance, which is something that clips on your ear. And again, it reads that inner beat interval. And through 3.5-minute, 5-minute exercises, it teaches you how to get more of that coherence, that green, because that green is so important to everything we do. Inner Armor, which there's 2 companies, Royer Neuroscience and Inner Armor. Inner Armor has a program where you can actually rent breathing belt and heart rate sensor, and that's about $100 a month. So there are some different things out there. Any breathing app is a good place to start. Okay, so there's all different types of things that you can look at. If you have questions, you want us to give you some more things free, or things that involve coaching, you just let us know. But let's look at where we landed on coherence. Do you know why that's kind of going? Where is it? This guy? Give me a second, guys. I can't see a thing. Can you see, which one is he wanting? Is it this one or it's that one?
I think it's this one.
They have so many things on me right now, I cannot figure out what in the heck. Can you move that up for me? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome, maybe? Awesome, awesome. Okay, I can keep my head like this. Okay, now I got a kink in my neck. Okay, so this was everybody that was running last time that stayed afterwards, which I appreciate. And is that me? Here, you fix me. I'm yours. What do you need to do?
Sorry about that.
Or there's not something loose, right?
No, you should be good.
Is that good? Okay, there we go. Now we're good. Thank you. So this is I love it. This is everybody from last time when we looked at your red, your green, and your blue. What do we want more of? Green. Green is coherence. That's the balance in the heart, okay? We want more of the green. So if you look, what do you think about what's going on with this person right here? Is this person like super calm? They have a good life expectancy. What do we think about this person? High stress, low stress, just perfect. High stress, okay. This person, they're in the same room, they're getting the same assessment, but their heart, the way they're breathing, they're setting themselves up for some serious kind of medical concerns, really, over time. We don't want that going on. How about this person right here? Oh, shoot, let's go back. That one right there. What do we think about this person right here? Okay. If I need to give somebody the ball at the end of the game, I'm giving it to this guy. I don't even know if he can shoot, okay? But I'm giving the ball to him because, or lady, I don't know who it could be. But this person is really calm under pressure. That's very good. Now, we talked about long-term stress, or short-term stress, but the blue is also fatigue. So what do we know about this person? Their stress may not be as high, but over time, they're developing quite a fatigue or kind of worn down. We would call that kind of adrenal fatigue over time, okay? This is all can be changed. Literally, I've taken groups like this, entire baseball teams, entire corporations, third graders at a school in California that look like this, and in 6 weeks, the whole thing's green. Still doing the same job. I can't stop the stress in your life, but I can stop how your heart and body is dealing with it. And we want to get these greens higher. If you want to Google anything and learn more about this, the word is coherence. Coherence. You want to learn more about coherence. Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead and we're going to walk through a few different things about sleep as we start sleep. So let's go here. And let's first talk about, when we talk about sleep, what are the things that sleep impacts, okay? So sleep impacts the brain, body, and everything we do. This thing's driving me crazy, okay? Let's just do this. What do you think? Hand mic. How about, can you hear me if I just talk like that? Yes, okay. Let's turn this off, because you know what's happening to my red right now? Is my red going up or down? And if I did this for 4 months, then my blue would go up because I'd be so tired from handling all the stress. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, no worries, that stuff happens. So we're going to talk a little bit about sleep, and when we do, let's pull this up here. Okay, right here. Okay, let's first talk about what happens when you don't sleep. What are some things that happen when you're not sleeping? We definitely know that heart disease is directly connected to not sleeping well. And we've known that for years. And we've actually seen some of the stuff as we look at the heart there. Anxiety. You're not resting, not recovering, that impacts anxiety. Type 2 diabetes. Significantly impacted. Insulin levels, depression, attention, digestive issues, cancer, weight gain, learning problems, processing speed, and memory problems. Okay? There's a famous prime minister. Her name was Margaret Thatcher. Okay? Anybody remember that name, Margaret Thatcher? What did they call her? The Iron Lady? Iron Lady? She had a famous quote, and she said, "Sleep is for wimps." And she was known for like only working off of 3-4 hours of sleep. Does anybody know what ended up happening to Margaret Thatcher towards the end of her life? Yes, she came down with Alzheimer's, and all that time that she thought she was making up by like, well, I'll get to sleep. I think she also said, I'll get to sleep when I die, okay? Is that all that time she thought she was making up by grabbing 2 or 3 hours here and there actually caught up to the point that at the end, she wasn't gaining anything from that, okay? And you have to understand how important sleep is in memory functioning. It is the most crucial component of memory functioning, okay? I work with a lot of people with Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia, all kinds of memory disorders, and the number one thing I see is that their brain waves are out of balance related to their REM sleep. Does anybody know what REM stands for? Rapid eye movement. And that is, what do we do when we're in REM? We dream, okay? And when that dreaming happens, we take all the things from the day, okay? And it's kind of like I've got this bowl right here, and let me see your bowl for you, okay? It's still got food in it, okay? I get this bowl, and I'm filling it up with different things that happened, like the microphone's not working, okay? Or he did a great job on his breathing, okay? All my different experiences of the day I put in the bowl, and I carry it around. And you know what we call that? We call that short-term memory. But my brain has to decide, because by the end of the day, this bowl is packed with stuff, right? So my brain has to say, hey, what are you going to keep and what aren't you going to keep? So it uses this thing, the hippocampus, where it stores memories. It's this little thing way deep in your brain, and that's attached to right next to something called your amygdala, okay? And so what it does is it kind of interacts with the amygdala, and it says, the amygdala manages emotions, and the hippocampus takes on memory. So what those two do while you're sleeping is they go through all the different things, and they find all the things that have emotional context to them, emotional context, and they take that and they figure that that's a pretty good filter for what should go on to long-term memory, right? Anybody have a family member or know somebody with Alzheimer's? Anybody? Okay. And they'll tell you stories from like 1940 in great detail. But every one of those stories is tied to emotion, okay? Because that's what causes those things to get stored on memory, okay? So during REM sleep, dreaming states, we have all these crazy dreams, and a lot of times what's related to those crazy dreams? Different emotion. Because we're taking the bowl and we're picking the crucial points and we're etching them on our memory to store them. But if we're not getting REM sleep, we're not investing long-term into memory functioning. REM happens during the second half of sleep. And a lot of us, by the time we get to the second half of sleep, we've just kind of given up and said, forget it, or we're sleeping very shallow, and we're not getting enough REM. And that's our long-term investment. We need the REM to be stronger. Now, let's look at when you do sleep, basically, everything is better. Everything. Every disease, pain, memory, processing speed, everything is better when we're getting the right amount of sleep. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a historical context, okay? I thought this was interesting. If you look, and I'm going to go a little bit into a spiritual context here, okay? If you look throughout the Bible, okay, you'll find that sleep is mentioned over 220 times in the Bible. And you don't have to be a spiritual person, just look at it as history. When was a woman formed from man? During what? Sleep. But Adam was put to sleep, woman was formed. Isn't that fascinating? You know, it wasn't just like everything else was created. Adam went into this deep sleep and woman was formed. Jacob, who ended up Israel, the nation of Israel, had a dream when he was fleeing and was under stress that Israel would become a great nation. Interesting, right? Then when you go into the New Testament, you see that Joseph, trying to figure out this very difficult thing is how is his wife pregnant, okay? Which is a very complex thing because he hadn't slept with her, right? And he's like, how is she pregnant? How was he told that everything was going to be okay? It was through a dream. It's interesting. And even prophets that told about history were told things in dreams. And I love this one story. Does anybody know the story where the disciples are in a boat and they're going across this lake and a storm comes up and they're freaking out? I mean, they are like stressed to the hilt. And these are fishermen, right? They're just freaking out. And what is Jesus doing? Does anybody know? What's that? He's asleep in the boat. And I kind of wanted to entitle our lecture today, Are You Asleep in the Boat? Like the world is in chaos, right? And in this story, he knows that everything's under control and he's sleeping in the boat. Or are you one of those people that are just screaming and have red all over the place and out of control? So historically, it's interesting in all different cultures how important sleep is. And even in the Jewish culture, they look at the day starts in the evening with your sleep. It doesn't end with your sleep. Your sleep is actually the most important thing that you do. So let's talk a few things about sleep, the science of sleep. There's 3 hormones that you need to understand in sleep. One is called cortisol. Does anybody know what cortisol is? Can you give me a description, or just really basic? Does anybody know what cortisol is? Everybody ever heard the word cortisol? Okay. Cortisol is related to stress. So you remember we talked about the brain lights up, goes into sympathetic, and then all of a sudden the hypothalamus tells the adrenal glands to pump out adrenaline. You guys remember that? That's called cortisol. This is very important. Every day you should be releasing a high volume of cortisol to wake up. That's what gives you energy to get out of bed. Okay? So when we don't have the energy to get out of bed, what's the next best thing that we try to use to give us energy so we can start the day? Caffeine. So if it's like, man, I can only operate off of caffeine, I would ask you the question, why isn't your body making cortisol when you wake up in the morning? Okay, because that's what it should do, is it should make cortisol. Now, if the fire alarm went off, we would also use that cortisol to instantly react. So we have this rhythm of cortisol where we produce a lot of it in the morning, but we also will have it come on board if we're in a crisis because it creates the ability to absorb a lot of sugar and get energy. But as the day progresses, cortisol goes down. It decreases because you can't go to sleep with cortisol. So if you kind of look at the day this way, let's divide this into, this is the day and this is the night, okay? And so when I'm going to start the day, okay, my cortisol is really high, okay? That's where my cortisol is, okay? And if you're functioning well, and you can actually measure this with saliva, it's pretty cool, we did this in the NBA with over 400 NBA athletes to track what was going on during the NBA season, what was going on to their cortisol, which was affecting their testosterone. Many issues with testosterone come from issues with cortisol, not just, hey, I'm older, I need testosterone. It actually goes back to these underlying things that give you energy and strength. So cortisol is high in the morning, about 8 units. And then as the day progresses, it gets lower and lower, okay? So by noon, you've had a pretty steep drop where you've gone from 8 units to really about 4 units. Down here, by the time the sun sets, you should be at about 3 units of cortisol. You guys tracking with me? So that's this adrenaline that comes right out of these adrenal glands, and it's pumping out, and it gets you awake, but then your body can't keep it in there. okay? Why can't I keep the cortisol up here when the night comes? Why? You wouldn't go to sleep, right? My problem in the NBA is when do they play games? At night. And I'd have these guys come up to me and we'd be talking after the game and he'd be like, I have a guy that was in the NBA for 13 years and he says, I can never remember a night where I got to bed before 5 a.m. He said, I've just never been able to do it. It's not that I want to go party. It's not that I want to go do this. He says, I just have to watch the game again. I have to write things down. I have to go through all this stuff. I can never get my brain. What's going on with him? His cortisol is shooting up at night, and he can't wind down to get to sleep. He has to go through this whole process to come down. Make sense? So as cortisol comes down, and you got a little sneak peek earlier, what works in the inverse of cortisol? What other hormone that we make works in the inverse of cortisol? As cortisol goes down, this one starts to come up, and it's really activated by darkness, by light. Light going away and darkness. What do you think that thing's called? Who said that? That right there is a $10 Dunkin' card. Look at you. Nice answer. I love it. That's good. Melatonin goes up when cortisol goes down. And what do you think melatonin does in the morning? Do you think it's up or down? Down. It's down here. Oh, just change the color. It's down here. And it's just riding along. And then all of a sudden it senses this drop. It senses this drop. And what it does is it starts to rise. And as it rises, it gets to a peak. And its peak happens at 12 midnight a.m. That's when your melatonin peaks. So another thing, I did a lot of work in the NBA. There's a great article in ESPN, the magazine, called NBA, The Dirty Little Secret. And it's a story. It was the number 2 story in the year that it came out. And it was my story telling about working with the NBA. And the dirty little secret was sleep deprivation is worse than concussion in the NFL. Is you're putting these people on these airplanes and flying them all over the country and depriving them of sleep. And every one of them is now susceptible to all the diseases that we talked about because they're not getting sleep, okay? So, but in there we looked at what the coaches would say, hey, we'll get them back from the West Coast at 7 a.m. and we'll give them the whole day off. And they can sleep all day long, okay? And I'd be like, guys, it doesn't work that way because we peak our melatonin based on the evening and you're not going to get your peak melatonin. So not all sleep is created equal. We need the apex of our sleep cycle. So we need to be at least 2 hours into our sleep cycle to truly benefit from this guy right here, from the melatonin. And so that's why sometimes we'll augment with melatonin. Now let's ask this question, okay? What happens if all of a sudden I have an interaction at work that causes my cortisol to go up? So let's say like 3 o'clock. Something happens and my cortisol goes like that. Somebody really ticks me off. Or I lost a big file. I know nobody ever had anything bad happen at work. Okay, but let's just say you did have something bad happen at work. And this bad thing happened and you got really ticked and your cortisol went up because it also does that too, right? It has a rhythm, but then it reacts to things to help me get energy. So what happens when this guy gets up to my melatonin? What do you think the melatonin does when he goes up? What was that? Justin, was that you back there? Okay. You're hiding back there from me? You and Chris back here just like... We're just taking it all in. Taking it all in. There you go. $10, man. Okay. Awesome. So what happens here is the melatonin, it is in a dance with cortisol. And it's not going to sit back and say, well, no, I'm taking over. Because it doesn't know why you spiked. This could be life and death, right? So what does my melatonin do? My melatonin now goes down. Get that? So then it's down here, it's waiting to rise, and so now I'm trying to go to bed, right? And what happens? Man, I can't sleep, right? because these things got out of balance. Does that make sense to you? Very important to keep those things under control. That's where if I have a lot of green, okay, I have a lot of green. You remember the green back earlier on the coherence? And all of a sudden that situation happens, I have a wider fulcrum, and instead of having all this adrenaline release, like the guy we saw in there with all the red, what do you think's happened to his melatonin? Okay? It's not happening. But the person with green, you can fire bullets over their head, and they're still going to be able to keep the cortisol under control and only use it when they need to. Make sense? Okay. So I got to give you one last thing. You guys tracking with all this stuff? I don't know about you, but this is really cool. I love this stuff. This is really amazing. I'm not just some thing that randomly goes through the world and doesn't have any purpose or meaning to it or isn't created in an absolutely wondrous way. We are the greatest things that have ever been created in the universe. Humans. I mean, we are amazing. The human brain, there's nothing like it. And this stuff is amazing. This is more amazing than your iPhone, okay? That these hormones are doing all this stuff all the time. Okay, so there's one other thing that we're going to bring into play. Okay, let's see if I can do this. There's one other hormone, and it's called adenosine. Adenosine, okay? Adenosine is your backup system, because I guess somebody knew that we would be kind of stupid, right? And knew, like, we're going to make choices to just stay awake as long as we want to, right? We're going to drive through the night to get there. We're going to just, you know, as I said earlier, the only creature on the planet that chooses not to sleep is a human. Every other animal sleeps, okay? And so we choose not to sleep sometimes, so we have this backup hormone called adenosine. Adenosine is amazing. So what it does is adenosine, right in the morning, just in case you're going to be stupid, okay, adenosine comes in and it says, right when the morning starts, it starts climbing. It doesn't care what cortisol is doing. It doesn't care what melatonin is doing. It just starts climbing, okay? And it climbs, and it climbs, and it climbs. And this is like a sedation. This is a sedating hormone, okay? It makes you sleep, okay? And so what it will do is if you keep going, it'll eventually hit to a certain point where you'll sleep out of debt, where eventually you will crash. There's only one chemical that we know of that can suppress adenosine when it's going upwards. And do you know what that is? Caffeine. So it's kind of like I'm blowing up this balloon and I'm capping it with a Red Bull, okay? And I keep blowing it up, and the adenosine's the backup system, right? And the balloon is getting massive, and I just keep cramming caffeine into it. But what eventually happens as I keep doing the caffeine? You've had this happen maybe, right? Where all of a sudden it doesn't work and the balloon just blows, and the adenosine comes out, and it, out of sleep debt, creates a crash, okay? So a lot of times we're fighting off fatigue and different things out of sleep debt because of using caffeine to do that, okay? Let's go back to the PowerPoint real quick, and let's see where we are there. Here we are. Okay. You guys hanging with me? So we had somebody do a sleep study for us, and this was one of your own, did this. And this is a medical grade sleep study, okay? This is not a Whoop, Fitbit. Those things are not going to give you exact measurements. They're going to tell you maybe how long you slept, which the ideal is going to be 8 hours. The 8 hour, 8 is great. 8 is great. 8 is great, okay? If you don't remember what I just said, I said 8 is great, okay? I know, exactly. Well, you know what Roger Federer used to say? Anybody ever heard of Roger Federer? Roger Federer probably holds the record for the most weeks in number one, which I think was something like 500 or 400 weeks. It was some ridiculous number, okay, at number one. It was years that he was number one. He would say, if I can't sleep more than 10 hours before a match, I just can't play. Can you believe that? And you hear about these athletes, these really elite athletes, that have learned that that's what they do. Like, is they sleep and they play their sport. Now, when you say, I can't sleep, who's got 8 hours? I get that. I hear what you're saying. But you have to look at sleep. It's an investment, okay? And there's two big investments that happen. In an 8-hour cycle, this is super important, the first 4 hours of sleep is all about your body, okay? So you go into this blue state. So this person here, see this blue on the graph? Oh, let's go back. Where was it? Okay, see this dark blue right here? There's leads hooked to this person's head, and they fell into stage 4 sleep, which is deep sleep. That's the deepest you can get. And during that stage, their body starts getting recovered. Their body doesn't get recovered at all through any of these light colors. It's only the dark blue where the body gets restored, okay? That's super important. Deep sleep is where your body gets restored, and that's the first 4 hours of sleep. 90% of what's going on is body restoration. This is where you make important hormones, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, are all made during this dark blue. So when I see somebody who's having a testosterone problem, the first thing isn't, hey, let's give you testosterone. It's like, let's fix your deep sleep, because usually the deep sleep's off. Or we're seeing issues with progesterone, estrogen. Again, we're looking at deep sleep. Anything related to your body is in deep sleep. So you can survive off of 4 hours because at this break point, I've gotten enough deep sleep so that I can kind of get back into the battle. Okay, so it's kind of it's built this way for survival. In case I'm running from something, like a saber-toothed tiger, I can jump in the cave, I can get a couple hours sleep, and I can start running again. Because the body only needs that first 4 hours of sleep primarily to get deep. So that's happening in your whole sleep cycle. It should be 25% of your sleep should be deep sleep, 25%. Okay? This person at JGR, they were in bed for 6 hours and 49 minutes, and they only slept 5 hours and 50 minutes. Okay? So it's like going to the office, and I only got 75% of the work done because this person was awake a lot. Okay? Their deep sleep needed to be 2 hours, and it was 1 hour and 29 minutes. Can they survive? Yes, they can, but they're likely going to have some type of physiological problem over time because the body's not getting recovered. This is real sleep study. This isn't, again, a Fitbit or an Apple Watch. This is measuring the brain, okay? Very important. I liken this to what's in your wallet. I did it last night. I stored it up. And now I have the wallet, the cash in the wallet to function today. And I can function. And that's why a lot of you function on very small amount of sleep. But the other thing that's just as important is, do you see these light blues? Those are called REM sleep. We talked about it earlier. That's where memories are formed. What should happen is at this point, this person should have had a lot of light blue. That did not happen. They actually had some light blue originally right out of the chute, and I would say that mentally they have something going on because their brain tried to start to fix problems before it fixed the body. REM shouldn't happen that quickly, okay? But when we're stressed, it does to solve problems, but it robs us from our deep sleep. So this person, this whole back half of his sleep should all be light blue, and it's not. His total REM is 45 minutes. And it needs to be 2 hours. Because in REM, we're building up our long-term investment. It's your 401k. REM is, what is your brain going to look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? And you're going to do all this work, but this guy's not there because you haven't invested in him. And that's why we need that 8 hours, is to fit that in to the cycle, is the REM sleep. This person is wakening more than they should, and they're not getting to sleep like they should. This is a really healthy sleep cycle. So you see the dark blue, and then do you see all the REM? And then the awakenings are the the red. So I was in a lecture format like this, and we gave some people, they were going to come back the next day, and I said, how many people, 0 to 10, how do you sleep? And I had two guys. Like I had one guy here and one guy here, and this person said, I sleep a 9. I said, okay. And this person, I sleep a 9. I'm a really good sleeper. I'm like, okay, I want you both to go home, and we're going to measure your sleep. Not just subjectively. What are you basing that off of? You're basing that off of how you slept the night before and the night before. You don't have anything objective to measure that to. So I took these 2 9s, and this was the first guy. This is a 9. This is really good. A lot of deep sleep, hormone development, really good. A lot of REM sleep. This person also said they were a 9. The reds are awakenings. This guy's a train wreck. But here, get this. The thing about being a human is we can adapt, and that's really cool, right? Is we can adapt. You know what's bad about being a human? Is we can adapt. What has this guy done? He thinks this what sleep is. That's not sleep. His brain's awake. His susceptibility for memory problems is going to be huge. His susceptibility for every disease on the planet, huge. Because we need to have the deep sleep and the REM sleep. Okay, we got to have both of those. Make sense? Okay, so one other thing on this is you guys, many people know, like have CPAPs or know about CPAP, apnea, hypopneas, and that's when we're not breathing well at night. So one of the variables that affects creating all that red is sometimes we're not breathing correctly at night, so we need to measure that. So we had somebody wear an O2 ring, and we looked at their results. And this is their results over here, and this is an ideal one. So what should happen on here is during the night, I should be breathing just as well as I'm during the day, where I'm getting enough oxygen in that the blood is getting saturated, 95% or higher. If it gets below 95%, cells will die, okay? Let me say that again. If your oxygen saturation gets below 95%, cells will die, okay? So this person, they were between 95 and 100% for 8 hours, and 100% of the time for 8 hours and 17 minutes. No cells are dying here, okay? 100% of the time they were up, their heart looks good. This person, for 74% of the time, they got oxygen, but for 26% of the time, they're not getting enough oxygen. Cells are dying while they're sleeping. Would that make sense why the person might be wakening a lot? If you were being suffocated, would you wake? Yes, you'd go into sympathetic. You guys remember that? Sympathetic. You would get tilt because you're not getting oxygen in. So it's very important for us to know what your oxygen is doing when we're trying to study sleep. Because this person, it all goes to, and it doesn't always have to be CPAP to fix this. There's other ways to fix that. So let's walk through that, but I wanted to give you a brief understanding of why are they doing CPAP is to keep you from going below 95%. But many times it's because of body position, which another talk we can explain that. Okay, let's go back to a couple more things and then we'll kind of talk about what we're going to do as an exercise for you guys. Okay, so here's some good assessment information, okay? What are some things, if I'm wondering about my sleep, if I'm wondering what my deep sleep looks like, my REM sleep looks like, here's a few things. One is the O2 ring, okay? So an O2 ring measures your oxygen saturation at night. You just put it on, very easy to wear, and in the morning you can sync it up with an app, and that app will show you, was my oxygen saturation above 95% all night, or was it lower? Sometimes our awakenings at 2 and 3 a.m. are because our oxygen saturation got too low because we weren't breathing correctly. So I have a case here in the back that John and Jake will have ready for us that has 30 of these O2 rings in them, okay? If you would like to measure your oxygen saturation at night, it's available for you, okay, for free, okay? You can take that home, you put the thing on. I have a video that describes how you download the app. and you can look at that, and you can send the information to us, and we'll give you an explanation of that. Just like a lot of you got your emails about what your heart was doing from last time. So oxygen saturation, there's no cost or anything like that. We're just giving that to you, okay? So we have those if you want to take those. If they all get gobbled up, then we'll rotate some of those to anybody else that wants those. But John and Jake will have a list for that. There is a other thing that we do is called the Insight, which is a device that actually gives us that sleep architecture where we put 3 leads on the head, and we can measure when you drop into deep sleep, when you drop into REM sleep, and when you awaken. I have 9 of those with us, okay? 9 of these full medical grade sleep devices, very easy to use, stickers on the back of your head, stick the device about the size of an iPhone under your pillow, and it'll give us an exact sleep architecture. Again, not your watch, okay? Somebody asked me the other day, hey, my Whoop says this, and I said, did you hook your Whoop to your brain at night? Okay? Because that'd be like somebody telling me, you know, I've got a heart problem and they're looking at my big toe. Like, okay, maybe you can figure that out from my big toe, but I need to look at the brain. So we have 9 of those devices that if you'd like to do a take-home sleep study, again, free. Free. Normally, it's about $300 for those, but you get them for free, okay? Just because you sit here and listen to me mess around with this microphone and all that stuff earlier, so you get that, okay? So if we have more than 9 people that want those, we will just cycle them through to the next person. The Synergy is a full-blown sleep study where you wear a chest strap and a nasal cannula. We're not offering those. Those are way too invasive. The other thing that I'd want you to think about is measuring your hormones, okay? And what hormone do I want to see? Cortisol, okay? We want to measure that throughout the day. Some people don't have energy in the morning, and that's because they're not making enough cortisol. They've been pushing red line all the time, and now the body can't make the adrenaline like it needs to. So we have access, and I can lead you to a website where you can get a hormone sample of looking at your cortisol in the morning, evening, and right before you go to bed. Very easy to do, and we can explain those to you. Okay? So those are a few things on assessment. Assessment's always the key on sleep, is figuring out what your sleep's doing. Now let's finish up with some interventions, okay? First of all, before going through these things, you have a sheet in front of you that John over here, who's my business partner at Inner Armor, he put that together for you. He's been working on that, so that's for you. Thank you, John, for doing that. Appreciate that. So those are there for you. You can also go to Royer Neuroscience to resources, and there's a bunch of videos on sleep, Then the first thing that I want you to think about, and you'll see one of the videos there where we're talking to the 49ers about sleep. And the first thing we mention is light. What activates, do you remember when we had the light colored box up here and the dark colored box? And I said melatonin is activated by the sun setting, okay? And you know, what is it that we don't want to be exposed to at night? Blue light, we all know that. But did you realize you actually need blue light in the morning? Okay, so we might avoid blue light at night with blue blockers, but we need more blue in the morning, okay? So there's some great devices that you can get through Amazon that are blue lights that have 10,000 lumens. You do those for about 20 minutes in the morning, and they'll start resetting your circadian rhythm. Very, very good. And you can go to our website and watch some of the videos about that. Biofeedback, like the breathing and heart rate stuff. Neurofeedback can also help with sleep. And last thing is anything that's anti-inflammatory. Measuring things like your omega-3 index, super, super important. And the other thing is any type of infrared sauna, infrared lamps, those are super good for helping with inflammation that can affect sleep. I have just a few minutes left, so I'll take any questions. We went through a lot of information. Any particular questions on sleep? Yes?
There's the deep sleep, there is REM, but there's also the light like in between, which is, I guess, the biggest portion. What happens?
Yeah, so light sleep is about 50% of our sleep, okay? And light sleep doesn't really do much for you. It's kind of a conduit or a pathway. So you're going through these stages, 1 and 2, that's light sleep. And then you go to 3 and 4, that's deep sleep. Then when you go into REM, it does something really weird. the brain, if you're looking at the electrical current on the brain, it actually goes higher, the electrical current, than when you're awake. So you remember we talked about the emotions and everything, but it keeps you immobilized. And so it's during that state that it's forming all these memories and stuff. But light sleep is all the pathways in between. So every 90 minutes, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's almost like somebody made it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and you're getting down in those deep sleep. But what happens to a lot of people is they get into 1 and 2, and their brain's so revved up, they have all that red on their heart, and they can't let go and get into deep sleep. And that's why we have to build resilience, so we can get down into deep sleep. Good question. 1 or 2 more other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Going back to breathing.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate that type of breathing without trying? Like if you're in the middle of a meeting and you want to, you know what I mean? Like how do you do that pause and then release it?
Yeah. So that is practice, okay? So there's a couple guys over here that are working on that, and they're about ready to get to the section where when we're doing breathing, we go through a section where we're teaching you how to do that unconsciously. But you just have to keep practicing that over and over, and it's really working on the movement of the diaphragm. And if you do 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes later in the day, and you start doing that every day, you'll start to not breathe that way all the time, but what you're going to notice is when you're not breathing that way. Okay? It's kind of like going down the road and all of a sudden you hit the rumble strips and you pull yourself back in. That's what happens when you start breathing correctly. Is all of a sudden you're in a meeting, you're like, why am I breathing so fast? I'm in traffic. Why am I breathing so fast? I think there's a few guys on that side of the room that can tell you that they've started to notice that. Like, why am I breathing that way? I need to get back to the other breathing. There's no reason to do that. So it starts to create this new normal that you're not in it all the time, but you start to notice when you're in that other state, which is absolutely out of sync. One other question. Yes, sir?
How do people that supplement melatonin, how does that affect their regular cycle?
That's great. So you want to be, I love melatonin. It's good for a lot of things. And every few years there's some bad rap out there, and that's probably put on by some drug company that wants you to take Ambien that's going to kill you. But sorry, I didn't say that. But melatonin is really, really good for a lot of different things. It even can help with cancer prevention. Okay, so melatonin is a good thing to do. What you want to, though, is you want to be measuring what your brain's doing, so you know, like, which type of melatonin do I want to use. Okay, so there's a long-acting melatonin and there's a short-acting melatonin, and then there's a melatonin that kind of does both. Okay, so there's a great melatonin that if you're going to try it for a few weeks, Sleep 3. Sleep 3. You can get that over the counter. It's great. It has a short-acting and it has a long-acting, because most of us are fine up until 2 a.m. Right? We're like cruising, you know, because the adenosine, because we let it build so much that it just crashed us, but we can't transition into REM. And so I've taken the melatonin 3 or 4 hours earlier, and I still need something. So that's where a delayed release might help for that. So that one guy that we looked up here where he wasn't doing any REM sleep, he didn't have any issue getting to sleep. So I wouldn't waste melatonin with an initial fast release. I would say you should be taking melatonin for your later 4 hours from now. But melatonin is a great, great supplement. Okay? But you want to be able to also work on other things to improve it. Okay? Guys, it has just been great working with y'all. And I'm hoping that this is helpful for you. And we're looking forward to next time that we get together. John, do you know what the next topic is?
October 6th now instead of 7th. It's that Monday instead of Tuesday because we have the victory lunch on Tuesday.
Victory lunch. Can I come to the victory lunch too? Oh, no, I'm joking. Okay. So Monday?
Do that
Monday.
Monday. After the Roval.
And what did we say that we're doing? I should know. Focus. Oh, boy. We're going to look at brain waves. We're looking at brain waves next month. That's going to be fun. That's in just 2 weeks. Anybody that wants a sleep study, John's got them all over here. He's got a sign-up list, either the O2 ring or the headset. Fantastic, great opportunity. You guys are awesome. Good to see you. Okay.